We're Nate and Jess, and welcome back to Positively Jacked, where we dish real-time strategies on nutrition, fitness, wellness, and lifestyle trends to prioritize positive psychological habits and best practices. Our goal for each episode is to relay helpful information in the topics relating to health, mental and physical, nutrition, lifestyle, and habit formation. In addition, we want to give real-time strategy, or RTS, that anyone can apply in the same day to help benefit themselves. Yay! This is 9 or 10.
I think it is 9. I don't even know anymore.
Woo!
Woo.
We're on one every 6 weeks.
We are almost to the double digits.
Almost to the double digits. That's a good year. Oh man. What are we here for today?
Oh, well, back to school just started. Seasons are changing. And I think I've talked to at least 10 people this week about how their schedules are changing.
Yeah.
Including myself.
Specifically parents, but
yeah, specifically parents.
Parents, or if you're in a college town or affected by school year, or just the summer ending.
Yep. But this is kind of, I feel like what we want to address today is kind of like how to pivot in those circumstances. You are used to doing something or living a lifestyle or habits a certain way, and then you find yourself all of a sudden back to school just drops on you, it feels like. And how do you pivot fast and recover quickly?
Yeah, basically reframing, restructuring. At certain points we have a beautiful, well laid out schedule and practice habits and all this other stuff, and then your wake up time gets adjusted, your go to bed time gets adjusted, your 3 hours of free time to cook on a weekend gets adjusted, and then bam, it all just snowballs into feeling like you're in a clamoring of reactivity as opposed to proactivity. So yep. Getting some real-time strategy on reassessing all of that, not only well and accurately, but also quickly, because there's sometimes these changes, within a week, you gotta be able to improvise, adapt, and overcome, as the great Bear Grylls would say.
Well, and we know it too, that the longer you are out of, I'll just call it out of sync, out of balance, the harder it's going to be, right? The more time you spent away from your goals or kind of focus from your goals.
Right. Yeah, I think a lot of people fall into that, when an adjustment needs to be made, it has to come from some of their self-prescribed time or self-regulation time. And that is a habit that we usually try to break or adjust, because if you're constantly making those pivots and those changes by removing times that keep you a whole person, then that means the product that comes from that is going to be slightly compromised each time.
Yeah. So we're excited to get into it today. So in today's episode, what we're hoping to cover is obviously handling those sudden schedule changes or lifestyle changes, being able to pivot to maintain focus on your health and fitness goals, immediate action tips you can implement like now to keep your routines on track and adapt effectively, how you can kind of keep going long term, have that resilience and that mindset piece to kind of check yourself and keep you accountable. And then, of course, we love positively jacked insights based on our own experiences and positive psychology.
Yeah. And, why does this matter exactly? Well, when you can't control every disruption, managing your health and fitness goals during schedule changes and minimize the impact, there's a lot of adjusting to a plot twist in a story, and you can't dictate that storyline, but you can adapt to keep moving forward. The faster you get back on track, the better. Embracing mindset, and not only helps you maintain the wellness goals, but also equips you to handle any new challenge, job shift, new school year, changing routines. Adapting effectively builds resilience and consistency, essentially for long-term success and balance.
Yeah. So let's dork out. I think it really, like you said, starts with mindset.
Yeah. When changes pop up, how do you interpret them?
Yeah,
Are they
exactly
highly inconvenient, or just a challenge to be integrated, or something you never wanted to plan for or anything like that, and you're going to resist it until it goes away?
Yeah. And we've talked about growth mindset. We have a whole episode on growth mindset that you should definitely check out.
I think biased, but
I'm biased. I love our episode on growth mindset. And I think, like we just called out, that first step is to really let go of that idea that everything is going to transfer over seamlessly, or this is going to be 100% carryover, as we say in corporate speak. It's also important, I think, to dismiss the idea that perfection is required for progress, or it has to be perfect, or it doesn't count in some way.
Yeah, if there's a the simple way I put that to people is that perfection is an illusion.
Yeah.
Right. It really is, because in reality, let's say you set, A as your goal, and 2 days in, 3 days in, you reach some sort of adversity and it starts to pull you away or in a different direction. And then days later, something else changes. Days later, something else changes. And then after, a month, however long it takes, you look back and you're like, the goal was achieved. It's like, well, was that perfect because you achieved it, like point A to point B? And it's like, it was anything but perfect. But the pursuit, all its flaws and all its qualities that were good, make it like this perfect pursuit. And so that's what we kind of aim for, is that not only are you falling in love with this, idea or goal you're trying to reach towards, but that the pursuit in itself is a good thing, like lessons to be learned. Everything kind of comes with that notion of being an opportunity.
Yeah. And what you're kind of, I feel like, diving into is that idea of neuroplasticity, where the brain has the ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections.
Mm-hmm.
And it's wired to adapt to those new experiences.
Yeah. Like our minds, one of my favorite quotes ever, the mind is the gatekeeper to the body. And I love that, because there's plenty of studies on it and everything like that, but like your mind can adapt, change. It's not, we were taught so young that a certain level of adaptation is like almost non-existent past 18, 22 years old, somewhere around there. And we're learning now that not only were we quite wrong, but people are making midlife career changes, learning new skills, learning all of these things in this information age. And there's really no limits. It's just about finding the way that it works for you.
Yep. And it goes back to that perfect pursuit. I think for the longest time I felt like it had to be perfect, and I would make myself so miserable along the way trying to make it perfect, that switching that mindset and becoming open to everything being a learning experience and kind of flow state through whatever was going to come up just made it that much easier to keep bouncing right on the rocks rather than falling in the water.
Yeah. And in that, it almost keeps the mindset of being a novice or always a student.
Yeah.
Right. There's plenty of times that you can push an agenda forward and kind of harden on some boundaries. But for the most part, go into it expecting almost to be short, expecting to learn a lesson. And then the pressure's off of you to be this mastery that you've conceptualized in your head prior to. You might have learned it one way, or you might have executed it one way before. But if you're years down the road, different life season, there's a lot of different ways. What is it? They say there's more than one way to skin a cat or something like that. I don't know. Maybe that's an older saying than I'm really playing.
Are we allowed to say that anymore without somebody calling us?
I don't know what's appropriate anymore. You know me. But that's why one of our favorite and yet to be created t-shirt sayings is firm principles, flexible methods, right? So you can have these baseline principles that always, go to your cornerstones, but the methodology in them can be really flexible, really fluid, and it's almost fun that way because it's never the same recipe, but you always kind of anchor back towards your familiarity of it and how it can change after that.
Yeah. And I'll throw in a resource here. If you're like me, I love Adam Grant. Like, if you don't listen to Adam Grant's podcast, you absolutely should. And his latest book, Think Again, talks about the lifelong process. Oh, it's so good. I've listened to it twice already. And he talks in great detail about lifelong learning and learning styles and if they're a myth or not, and just so much dork out there. So put that one forward in your queue if you haven't.
It's up there. I just got yelled at that I have 3 Audible credits to be used because I haven't finished my last book. But
boy, I have 9. So
geez. All right. Well, you also murder books through the year way more than I do. So I'll try to catch up to that range.
So let's get a little practical tactical for a minute. What have you seen this look like in some of our clients?
The favorite for me is anytime I'm advising healthy habits and nutrition, because that tale as old as time. When people end up working with a nutrition coach or with a personal trainer, they want to lose weight. They want to do some form of body recomposition, right? Now, where it starts in their mind is a number. I want to lose 20 pounds. I want to lose 30 pounds. And in my younger years, I would say, cool, I have a fillet blade. Just show me where you want to take it off. Just so I could give them how I felt. The number was kind of irrelevant, right? Your weight can fluctuate, especially on a scale, 10 or 3 to 7 pounds in certain cases of the month, even wider range. And so a lot of people come in, they want X amount of pounds. We talk about why that's not necessarily the best way to frame it. And then we start on our pursuits. And what sometimes happens, especially if somebody's working programming or strength and conditioning type work with their nutrition, is out of nowhere, they're like, my weight's up. And if this is a deconditioned person, somebody who's not used to being not only in a routine and not only not eating on a regular basis, yeah, the weight will go up. And then I have to kind of explain, well, you're doing tissue damage. Tissue damage makes hydration, sugars, salts pull into your body. You're doing strength work. So that means that muscle's being added to your body. So I've had so many people come in where this preconceived notion of I'm going to train, I'm going to eat right, I'm going to lose weight. It's just that simple. And then I'm saying, you're going to train, you're going to eat right. Who knows what's going to happen to your weight? But in 3 months, your clothes are going to fit better. And likely your blood markers are going to be better too. And so it's just changing those end metrics that people make up in their minds, right? They know the principle is that they want to be healthy, but it's so easily misconstrued with the wrong metrics or the wrong numbers. And then as we pursue it through and these little things come up of, I've gained 3 pounds in 2 weeks. It's like, well, some of it's muscle, some of it's hydration. And then, my pants are fitting differently. My shirts are fitting differently. I have different sleep patterns now. And it's just that snowball effect that they weren't quite ready for. They thought it was as simple as I'm going to lift weights 3 times a week. I'm going to do cardio a few times a week. And I'm going to eat 2,000 calories and my scale's just going to plummet. And it's like, it never works that way.
Yeah, they really get set. And I'm absolutely guilty. When I started CrossFit, I lost about 10 pounds and then I gained 10 pounds.
Yeah.
And you get so focused on the micro adjustment before you really see the macro picture of what it all is going to look like. I think, for me, my schedule changes all the time. Every day is kind of an adventure of, well, which country are we meeting with at what time of day? And so reframing that to look at my calendar, be like, ooh, I can squeeze something in here. I can squeeze something in here. It's not the perfect 2-hour window that I dream of that looks like a CrossFit game athlete's training. But if I could squeeze, deadlifts or back squat in the garage between a meeting, that's become my new reframe of that's an opportunity.
What I love about that is if anybody, now obviously we have a base in the CrossFit space, but like we have done conventional strength and conditioning in different programs, different circumstances. But when you think about the early days of CrossFit and CrossFit.com, the workout could have literally been 5x5 back squat.
Oh, it was. It would literally be just a simple strength piece. And that would be the workout of the day on the website.
Yeah. 10, 8, 6, 4, 2 weighted dips. Like it could literally be those things. So when people think 45 to 60 minutes, 60 to 75 minutes, whatever their hour training, stuff like that, it's got to fit that mold. Yep. That's some of my favorite reframing.
Oh, absolutely.
It's people don't, we've talked about it before. I always phrase it as going on autopilot. They have these built up definitions and parameters and boundaries around what they expect. And then we're just like, well, why is it like that? They never really go back and challenge it. So it never really makes it work for them. And the whole idea that we're talking about with these reframing and reshaping is that you can challenge the base of it a little bit to a kind of a root cause and then restructure the method very simply. And it's a great tool to be able to practice, because then, like, just like we're here, where school's back in session. Oh, it's winter out, so I can't go out and run my miles or do my walks like I was doing. Oh, I'm traveling every other week. I can't get my consistency with my gym equipment. I'm gonna have to be improvising with a hotel. But you stick to those principles and you just kind of understand that you can always take a step back to that base and then reroute it. It's a lovely, lovely habit, or a lovely skill to have.
Yeah. And that reframe specifically, I think what I found is I don't need to dilute my effort to 65 to 70 minutes every day. I can put all of it in a 5x5 back squat, and it's actually a really effective dose because I've given it more attention and more intention behind it. And so I'm not like, ooh, I maybe won't go as heavy. No, I will go to a greater degree of effort because I've just got this one little piece.
Yeah. Oh,
So
now we're going to start getting into not only the habit change or the change, but the intent.
oh yeah.
Oh, the
So
intent
that's a
and
fun reframe.
mentality behind it is a great one.
Yep. Yep.
You hit the nail on the head there. It's like, all I got is 5x5. It's like, oh, all I got is 5x5. It's like,
yeah,
chopping at the bit.
Yeah. And so I think what we've covered is reframing these challenges as a big mental piece to changing your mindset, and also just continuing to remain flexible and doing what you can do. And that's still progress.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's you know, I'll go the hardcore, like kind of bro-ish route, but it's that old Bruce Lee, be water. Like,
Yep.
You go into a cup, you fill the cup. You go into a bowl, you fill the bowl. It's like, you gotta have that little bit of fluidity to how you're wanting to move through.
Absolutely. So we've reframed now. And I think, as we've said, it's always important to bias toward action. So what do we do next?
Talk about one of your favorite people.
James Clear. I don't think you can talk about acting or bias toward action without talking about James Clear.
I mean, everybody knows. Well, if you don't know, Atomic Habits, get on it. Another book recommendation.
Yep. We recommend it to almost anyone who is new to habit or lifestyle change because it's so consumable and easy to understand and grab onto and make a plan. So he posits in Atomic Habits that making incremental adjustments to your routines, you can progress without overwhelm.
Right.
Oof, words are hard today. And there is no better time to pull this concept out of our toolkit than now.
Yeah.
So just like we talk about, James Clear is great for the beginning, but he's also great for when you have to essentially rebalance your habits.
Yeah, absolutely. He does a really good job, not only identifying components of the habits and components of the change, but kind of giving you examples as to like where you could kind of put your best effort or where you could attack that low hanging fruit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what you're getting at is kind of his like core elements of habit formation. And so those are cue, craving, response, and reward.
Yep.
So, we're so excited already.
You go right ahead. Most of these notes, most of our show notes today are just because this is like a giddy subject for her. Like
it is actually
change engine work with habits and stuff. Like this is, yeah.
As an adult,
this is a best zone.
Yeah, I love change management of any kind. So if you ever want to talk it, come find me. So cue is that trigger that initiates a new habit. So when your schedule changes, you might need to identify new cues that signal it's time to engage in your healthy fitness routines. So for a lot of us whose kids are going back to school this week, we're suddenly finding ourselves up earlier, getting them up earlier, making lunches. So now our workout times might need to slide. So that cue could be a new alarm. It could be that new schedule piece where you know you need to be getting them up by 6:45 every day. We just need to think about how our existing cues have shifted. So maybe instead of our morning run, that school drop off now triggers, a walk around the block. So that's a good reframe activity.
Yeah. One on the nutrition side of things is a lot of times when school goes back in, weekend activities kick up, right? You've got athletics, you got stuff like that. So maybe your 3-hour meal prep time during the week on a Sunday is scrapped because you've got soccer practice or soccer tournaments or something like that. Taking that and shifting it to, 2 1.5-hour sessions of dinners on your early evenings where the kids have their own practice or have a ride home, and just reorganizing that little bit of a frame, because then the week keeps that in order for like family function, but it's on a different day. It's in a broken time, but it's still there.
Yep. And I think another good one I've seen you do with people is we don't just treat Sunday as the everything needs to happen in that day. And like you called out, sometimes that planning even backs up. You start planning Thursday, you buy the ingredients Friday, you prep Sunday. Like you can shift that around in a lot of different ways to make that work in a schedule.
Yeah, absolutely. Next one, the craving, the desire or motivation behind the habit. I love this one because it just lines up with the why.
Yep.
That's my
Absolutely.
favorite thing to get anyone reoriented. What's the North Star? What is your directive? What is the one thing, the 3 to 6 words that resonates so hard it gives you goosebumps because you have that emotional attachment to it, right? There's
Yep.
an innate drive. So when you think about that, like a lot of times you can reflect on it based on success you've had, like what fulfillment felt like to you and what that meant. It's really just your biochemical markers, right? It's just you set something as far as like your motivation behind it. You pursued whether it was good, bad, this, that, or the other, and then you came to fruition and you got that wash of dopamine, that wash of like delayed gratification, right?
Yep.
Why was strong enough to carry you over to learn that lesson, and that's so essential, and that's why we cover these topics of pivots so much, because realistically, it's so rewarding to get to that end goal that you got to, if you can stay adaptive in the in between, you're going to get that wash of that learned habit and just increasing those cravings and those whys over and over.
Yep. And that kind of brings us to our response, the actual behavior action. So as your schedule shifts, adapting your responses to fit that new context can help you maintain your habits. That wash of dopamine, that feeling that you not only made the test time, but you aced the test, like that feeling is the feeling you chase. So I know for a lot of our clients, that new dopamine feeling is going to mean earlier workout times, different meal prep times. It's important to call out too that when your brain associates those behaviors with positive feelings, it can help that change process.
Oh, it can give it a freaking nitrous boost.
Yeah.
So much nicer when you have positive, your body essentially is responding to it with such vigor that it's very easy to stay motivated at that point.
Yep. For me, I was a lifelong 4:30 class person. And since moving to Charlotte and taking on a different job, my new workout time means getting up at 5:15 and being at the gym at 6. And that dopamine took a while to realize, that response took a while to realize, but now I see certain people every time I go in. I might do extra work on the side because I've created more space in the morning, and that dopamine response, that feeling of accomplishment is something I chase now. And plus, like, who doesn't feel like a badass when by 7 a.m. they are done for the day as far as all the work they have to do?
Yeah, that's why I shifted my long runs to early mornings on Thursdays. It's usually my late start to work. So if I need to be on my feet for 90 minutes, 2 hours at a certain point, you wake up at 5, you go run when it's cool, you get back, you eat, and then it's not even 8 o'clock. Most people's normal day hasn't even started, and I've got 8 to 10 miles under my belt, plus shower, plus food, and now I'm just ready for that day. And I've gotten so much excess energy out already, so my day's gonna be nice and calm.
Yeah, well, and I think you call out a really good point too. Is when you have a lot of stress in your day, and let's face it, a lot of us do, that taking care of yourself first in the morning makes such a difference in how nice you are and can stay throughout the day. And I say that as someone who just felt that hormonal drop into PMS. So you feel me. Like, or maybe you don't, but maybe they do.
It's almost like your early AM routine can be such a tone setter for your existence beyond the initial 2 hours of your day. Not that we're biased towards morning routines or anything.
That's a really good
wink,
call
wink.
out.
This is something we talk about constantly.
Yeah, I think that's a really great thing to call out. You talk so much, I know, with a lot of our clients about designing our environments. And that's another concept of James Clear's.
Yep.
A lot of us have these great habits we've curated over time, and we've used his processes to build small stuff first, habit stack, and we have like almost this lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How do we, when everything feels like we've just tossed it in the air, like, where do you pick a place to start pivoting?
Mine is I always go to basic human function.
Yeah.
You will never outrun your physiology.
It's not gonna happen. True.
You're a human. It's such a funny thing how many people can convince themselves that they don't need basic physiological needs. Like, you are a creature of this earth. You need sleep, hydration, and nutrition. That's it. Those are non-negotiables. If you aren't taking it back to those 3 subject areas first, and making sure those are optimized. Like I said before, a lot of things that come from you are going to be a compromised product, right? They're going to be your best thinking is going to be fueled by 60 grams of sugar with a ton of caffeine and not a well-balanced meal. They're going to be fueled by 6 hours of sleep as opposed to 8 hours of sleep, right?
Yeah.
So your cognition is going to suffer. So for me, I always go back to baseline physiological stuff and making sure that it's optimized within reason.
Yep. I agree. I think everything else flows from good sleep for me personally.
Mm-hmm.
And then, if we talk about nutrition, if I'm trying to get it all back, I just start with tracking protein again.
Yep.
Like sleep, protein, and then plenty of water. Like those are 3 factors that for the most part are super easy to at least put back in play quickly.
With the nutrition side, I've actually started biasing a little bit more on meal consistency and timing.
Yeah.
Because I'm all for protein, but protein is one of those ones where, for a lot of people, eating an appropriate amount could be a big step, right? You take somebody who's used to eating 2 meals a day, 1,200 or 1,600 calories and maybe 30 grams of protein. The last thing you want to do is just be like, all right, we need to bump that up to 100 grams. Like,
right.
No way, their digestion's not going to take it. So what I look at is like, all right, you're used to eating 2 meals a day, one at 10 o'clock, one at 6 o'clock. Let's go ahead and bump that to 3 meals that consist of X, Y, and Z at 8 a.m., 1 o'clock, and 5 o'clock. Now we're on a 4 to 5 hour time frame, starting to regulate hunger. And then once hunger starts to get regulated and they're like, oh, I'm actually hungry. It's like, cool. Now you're ready to start digesting more food and getting a little bit more bounty into there. So it is one that I've realized has stemmed into some fun little like offsets, like helping control acid reflux and gastric distress. Like if you're consistently on a timetable of food, content wise, it does make an effect, but just in general, 3 meals a day at an evenly spaced cadence can really relieve some digestive distress on a lot of people.
That resonates, especially after all my work travel.
Yeah, we've talked about your nutrition in detail. So just this is a cool little side caveat though, just so everybody knows. Jess and I talked about her nutrition 2 weeks ago. And formatted some macros that you had been those have been at your baseline for years.
Probably.
Yeah. And it was one of the ones where we just had to take a little quick reassess. But look at that. You have somebody who's running a podcast, subject matter on a lot of this stuff. And then 2 weeks ago, we did a reframe. We did a complete reset.
Yeah.
So we're not above the principle, the firm principle.
No, I think that's a great call out. And it kind of goes into, once we start to put these pieces back, like we've stack ranked them now, talked about where to focus first, but like, what are some important best practices, things to keep in mind when we're making all these pivots happen, I guess?
How do you eat an elephant?
One bite at a time.
One bite at a time. Small, very small. And here's the thing that is everybody, we know young competitors, we know older individuals. A lot of people, time is one of those considerations when setting things up that is always thought of way last or towards last.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, start small, let them marinate, and build that momentum. It's a snowball effect. Whereas if you try to attack too much at once, not only are you going to see more fall off, which is going to be discouraging, if you do get success, you're not going to be very in tune with what bred that success, because there's so many factors you're trying to change at once.
Yeah.
So start small, very, very small and simple.
Suspend your ego.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people too, they feel like they're not doing it unless they're doing it all at once. Mm-hmm. And I think what I had to do, in coming to you a couple of weeks ago was say, look, it's not working. I don't feel great with this. I need to make some changes, but I'm only making a few at a time.
Yeah.
Right.
What we do, we adjusted your protein down a little bit, your carbs up a little bit, and talked about your meal timing a little bit.
Yep.
That's really it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's another good call out. It's practice. It's the idea that we're not perfect yet, but we're going to start incrementing some small things first, and then stacking things over time, and then just going back to simplifying. Like this doesn't have to be a hero effort at first.
Interesting choice of words, because a hero's journey is usually judged at the end.
Yeah. That's a really good. We actually need that as a shirt, I think.
That's exactly. You know what?
I was like, did you see my face just now? Nobody else can see it, but he can. And
there was an eyebrow raise. I live to try to randomly say things that make Jess just go, oh, like, yes. Oh, yeah. Start small, keep it simple. And once you get those kind of things rolling, stack them up, right? So let me ask you this. Habit stacking, right?
Mhm.
We went over your slight adjustment to macros.
Yep.
Okay. And we went over your meal timing. What, if anything, have you stacked with that, or what do you feel like that is going to stack into in the coming weeks?
I mean, it's more what I'm going to continue to get rid of, probably. I've been slowly whittling down caffeine consumption a little bit. So that's the current stack. And then obviously with my kid going back to school, my workout times are shifting earlier. So that's the only kind of stack I've got going on right now. But continue to watch carbs as I increase activity a little bit. So yep.
Yeah, and one thing I'd like to point out to anybody listening, Jess just said she's bumping carbs and backing off caffeine. That means that she's fueling with actual energy. And as her activity goes up, she needs more fuel, not more caffeine.
Let's note the time. It is August 25th at 3:28 p.m. And I have declared this of sound body and mind that I'm reducing the amount of caffeine. I had one coffee today.
I love it. Okay. So quick RTS when it comes to at least the habit stacking and kicking off some stuff. What do we think? Where's the best places to start?
Oh my gosh. Morning and evening routines are clutch.
It's my favorites.
I know. Nothing makes you feel like more of a badass on social media when you post some element of your morning or night routine.
Realistically, yeah, especially if it has, no matter what the day is, if it has elements that can, that are very simple to execute. Like when I start with nutrition clients, the top things I go for are minimizing your screen time, right? Like as soon as you wake up, avoid a screen and get into natural light, move your body, hydrate your body, and then within an hour of waking up, get some fuel in your system.
Yeah.
And it's so subtle, so simple. And yet,
yeah.
People the counterpoint to this, the stuff that we have to completely like try to remove from people's stuff are the people who wake straight up, start washing their face while drinking their coffee. And, after their coffee has been downed, at least 8 to 12 ounces, then they have some sort of microwavable or quick reheat, prepackaged thing that they ripped out of the freezer while they're, brushing their teeth afterwards, and then throwing down another coffee. And then within the first 90 minutes, they've got, close to 150 milligrams of caffeine and maybe 300 calories in their system.
Yeah, that's what we like to avoid. It's funny because we do a Sunday walking group, and it's Sunday now. And today, Pam joined us. If you don't know Pam, she is the ultimate face of CrossFit gymnastics. I was only hero worshiping a little on this walk as I walked behind them. And she was talking about how after the games that she's going to in Birmingham next week, she's going to Denver for some kind of fitness charity event, and she has to stay up for 24 hours. And she was like, I don't know how I'm going to do that. My nighttime routine is so important to me, and I go to bed at 8 o'clock every night. And I was like, dang, I love you.
I love you. But also, have you heard the saying firm principles, flexible methods before?
I know. But it was just in that moment, I was just like, who knew at 42 we would aspire to have the nighttime habits of like an 80-year-old? Because I do. I absolutely love it. It's like
there's been so much research in how beneficial sleep is, and we're just coming on the wave of it. That's all it is.
I know. It's still amazing because now it's like past 9:30. I start to like crisp at the edges, I feel like. And for years in my 20s, I drank unidentified alcohol out of kiddie pools and stayed up till 4 a.m. And I I don't know how those are the same people.
I'm so glad I found CrossFit when I did, because I can legitimately say I was, in and around 20 to 23 years old. There were times where I would like just make a pallet in my walk-in closet so I could sleep in cave-like conditions and all this other stuff, because realistically, like I think with my own blessed genetics from my dad's side, plus finding this stuff early, I'm like, man, I hope I get to like 120, 130, somewhere in there. I want to age so long.
Yeah, if I take care of myself, can I basically be a mummy where I'm still alive and I'm like still kicking?
Well, I mean, modern science, who knows? We've got a better look than most other generations before us.
Yep. But yeah, I enjoy going to bed every night as basically like a cave creature.
Cold cave-like conditions, people.
Yep.
Beneficial for your sleep.
Yep.
One thing that I wanted to kind of segue to, because it is a method that you love, but it's also really hard for people to recognize. And I want to emphasize these changes that we're talking about. Not only is it a season change, right? School's going back into session and stuff like that, but just in general, a good little rule of thumb. If you ever feel like anxiety and like anticipation of stuff is a constant narrative in your mind, then it could be your body and your habits and your lifestyle challenging you to make a change, such as the things we're talking about. So sometimes it's not even a change in season. Sometimes you get to that point of like, if I continue more, I'm going to break, I'm going to hit burnout. Burnout's what we talk about with athletes, but professional careers can have burnout, all this other stuff. So when you start getting those anxiety, like bells are ringing, how do we create space for that? Because it's really not easy to just say something's wrong, something's different. Here's a habit to change. Now I'm better, right? It doesn't ever really work that way. Sometimes you got to have that time to, as for mindfulness breaks. And I'm going to let Jess take it from here on, her favorite acronym that we use all the time.
Yeah, I think that's a really good call out, because burnout is so prevalent, but if you've never been in it before, it's hard to recognize the signs before you're pretty much too far to go in. Right? Or you're pretty too far in. For me, a big thing now that I work in an environment where burnout is very easy to end up in, it's mindfulness. And I'm not talking like woo-woo, meditate, drift off to a place and let your brain swirl. I use the STOP method a ton. So that STOP method is like stop, take a breath, observe, and proceed. And I do that all the time. It's the way I stay on track with all of these goals and changes that I'm making right now. It's, how is this going? How do I feel? Do I notice the things around me? How am I going to adapt to this next challenge I know I'm about to go into? What could I do differently or better? Like it's just talking to yourself and reflecting constantly and finding triggers and places to put that. So for me, a lot of times I do it right away in the morning as I sit down. That's my trigger of like, just sit, don't touch the computer, don't touch the keyboard, don't be surfing, don't do anything else. Just sit in whatever it is and start to observe how I'm feeling, because the day hasn't started yet. It's a great time to take that measure. And then I do the same kind of at the end of the day. I take that same kind of measurement and just see, okay, now that we finished for the day, how are we feeling? What do we need to do next? What are we stuck? What do we need to ask for help on? What do we need to delegate? And that little bit of check-in throughout the day 2 to 3 times makes such a difference in staving off what comes with burnout, right? Fear, anxiety, non-sleep, non-eat, eat too much, like all the places your habits can start to drift.
Yeah, I'm gonna kind of build off of that. Like a lot of times when it comes to burnout, or times where you need to start self-assessing, emotional detachment, that's a big one. A lot of times when you are tiptoeing around burnout or needing to self-reflect, your why becomes very murky. And it's because you don't feel quite an emotional attachment to possibly the methods into which you're using to build off of the principles that you were going for in the first place. So it's sitting back like, what am I feeling right now? Anxious. Yep. Why am I feeling anxious? Well, I'm trying to make these, Q3, Q4 numbers to a certain point, and I just feel like I'm completely overwhelmed. It's like, okay, well, is it a situation where you need help, or do you need to assess your methods and stuff like that? I think it's both. Cool. Who can you else ask help from? And just tearing it out slowly, yep. Right? Just kind of pulling on the thread of yourself a little bit. And this is one of the main reasons I always recommend journals. I know people don't like their own voices. I know people are like, well, what am I going to write about? It's really simple. It doesn't have to be about anything in particular. But when you start doing self-assessment and pulling a thread, what better place to look back than a log of your own thoughts? And it can be scratch, it can be free form, it could be guided, it doesn't matter. But if you look back on 3 or 4 pages and you start seeing some regular phrases or regular perception pop up, it's pretty easy to be like, why am I feeling this way? Well, for the last 6 days, I felt like I haven't gotten enough sleep, and I haven't.
Yep.
Wow, I wonder what would happen if I got 8 hours for a few days.
I think that's such a good call out, the emotional detachment piece. And I think I'll extend it if you feel like you're withdrawing from people in a time of change. That's like a huge, huge flag. If you're pulling away from, your spouse, your friends, even your kids, like because you feel just so I'll equate it to like short circuiting, or like your wires are shorting out, everything feels frayed. Like that's a huge sign of burnout or like overwhelm. Like that's when you need to ask for help. That's when you need to talk to somebody, you need to journal. Like I would highly recommend engaging with somebody at that point. And we just recorded an episode on what happened to the games, and I came home and I was feeling that. And so that's when I was like, okay, we are going to re-baseline my nutrition. We're going to re-baseline the habits, the sleep. We're going to talk to therapists. We're going to like get some things in order, because I knew all these pivots were putting me in an overwhelmed state.
Yep.
So
beyond initial days or weeks, right? We like to go a little bit towards the long-term adaptation. I think you hit the nail on the head there of building a support network.
Absolutely.
I'll tell you right now, I never stick to as strongly to certain pursuits as if I had communicated them to someone to keep me accountable. Right? I've told you about things I'm studying, things I want to pursue. I've told Kels, I've told friends of mine, like, it's like, hey, I want you to ask me questions about this. I want to be able to broach these subjects with you. And it's, obviously vet your sources or vet your people as much as you feel comfortable, but having that in there to challenge you and soundboard you, right, openly without judgment is going to be one of the best tools to insulate you long term, because then you've opened up these channels where when all else fails, you can talk to this person, or when all else fails, you can reach out to this core and have at minimum someone just to express it to.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. Woo.
We covered a lot.
We did.
We were going.
Well, when you got a master of change engine and change metrics and stuff like that, just crushing it. I think something that would really that I would like to resonate before we go over all the closing points is, just because a method has worked or hasn't worked in the past does not mean that you should stay closed off to it or think that it's the easiest way to get back, right? Different seasons of life, different ages, different experiences, right? It's no different than writing programming for athletes. If I have a new athlete, I can saturate them with a certain amount of volume. If I have a seasoned athlete, I have to be very particular. And so same thing goes with you. Methods that you may or may not have tried, depending on the time and depending on your willingness to dive into certain aspects of them, they can work down the road. They may have worked before, but they might not work now. So it comes back to the fluidity piece, right? Be as fluid as you can. If you start feeling that resistance and stuff, maybe it isn't the perfect route, but just kind of improvise on the way and think about that little bit of movement forward, even if it's familiar or not familiar.
Yep.
Like, it's gonna look different.
Yep. And different is okay.
Different is
every time we go into it, and you and I have both been through several rounds of rebuild or start over. Every time looks a little bit different, and that's okay.
Yep.
So,
yeah. Along with that, consistency over perfection.
Yep.
There is no perfect. It's an illusion. But the pursuit, right, especially if maintained a good mindset, a good mental strategy about it, the pursuit can be that of perfection.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we were to give you any homework for this week, think about a strategy from today's episode that maybe resonated, and whether it's adjusting your morning routine or setting a small, achievable new goal for the week, whatever it is, commit to trying it out.
Mm-hmm. Do something.
So,
I mean, just start small.
yep. Reflect on how it makes you feel, pick up that journaling habit a little bit, and let us know how it goes. We'd love to hear from you.
I would love to hear about people doing this stuff on their own. I hear about it enough when people doing it with me. So I want to hear some. I want to hear some variability. I want to hear some curveballs outside of my structures that I make people do.
So a few of the things we covered this week, we covered Atomic Habits by James Clear. We covered Think Again by Adam Grant, a few others. Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg is another favorite of mine. And Mindset by Carol Dweck are great books when you're in a pivot and you just need to feel motivated and empowered that you can get through it.
Yeah. And I know it's almost too easy to do, but with some tools and stuff, if anybody is has a difficult time starting a journaling habit, go onto Amazon, type in the 5-minute journal. It's one of those things. It has an AM journal prompt and a PM journal prompt, and it's some of the best guided journaling to get your self-narrative started. It doesn't have to be free form. It doesn't have to be multiple pages. It's got directives in there, but it's literally AM routine is like 6 to 8 little questions and statements. PM routine, same thing. And it just gets you used to understanding how your internal narrative works.
Yep. And I'll put a plug in for a habit tracker that I've been using since I've worked with Nate the past few weeks. It's called Streaks. And it's super easy, super colorful. You just create different panes depending on categories. So I've got a streak in for eating yogurt every week, which is difficult. Consistency is a problem for me. Having a protein shake at 2 p.m. every afternoon and walking 1 mile a day. So
love that. Oh my gosh. It's so good.
Yeah. And all you do is hit the button and it's like, you're done. And it's so dopamine inducing to finish all your little buttons for the day.
We'll have to do an episode on gamification.
Oh gosh, that's my other nerd out for sure. Let's talk about Skinner boxes for a whole episode.
Let's go. All right. But be kind to yourself. Habits, pivots, all that stuff. Never easy, but always worth it.
Yep.
Okay. Especially if you've got a good thumb on the pulse with your own internal narrative, doing the things, knowing your why. That's all immensely helpful into building a life that's a little bit more in control and actively perceiving instead of that autopilot that I try to teach everybody to avoid.
Yep.
That does it for this particular episode 9.
Yep.
Stay positively jacked, everybody.
Yep. Bye.